Happy Tuesday, everybody. Today we are going to read some more of Maniac Magee. I know it's been a while since we read about Maniac and what he's been up to, but we're going to get into it. But today I want to talk about point of view, and we've learned about this before, but I want to do a little refresher on point of view. So let's go ahead. You know, Miss Smith is a fool for vocabulary, so let's go ahead and watch our vocabulary for today.
Every story has a narrator, and every narrator has a different point of view. Which point of view is yours? Let's go! Everybody wants to know my point of view. First person is me, second person is you. Third person is he, third person is she. Everybody wants to know my POV. Everybody wants to know my point of view. First person is me, second person is you. Third person is he, third person is she. Everybody wants to know my POV.
Hey yo, knock knock, who's there? Narrator, who gonna tell the story from a point of view? Every story's written in a certain voice. When you're writing, you need to make a choice. First, second, or third person, POV. The first person is all about me, or we, like we climbed the tree. I closed my eyes and I felt the breeze. I might be unreliable if I don't tell the truth. Now let's switch the point of view to you. In the second person, you're in a taxi. You're wondering how you got there exactly. The third person is he or she. He walked down the street and he saw the queen. She was just hip like it wasn't a thing. That's the third person, take it from him. Third person narration could be objective, omniscient, or from a limited perspective. Can the narrator see in everyone's thoughts? Narrating omnisciently like a boss.
Everybody wants to know my point of view. First person is me, second person is you. Third person is he, third person is she. Everybody wants to know my POV. Everybody wants to know my point of view. First person is me, second person is you. Third person is he, third person is she. Everybody wants to know my POV. Oh, right now, check your notes. Tell me which POV is in each quote. I was born with water on the brain.
That's first person. It says I. First person is me.
That's first person. He looked up into Father Wolf's face and laughed.
If it says he, remember, first is me, second is you, third is he or she or they. So this is third.
That's third person. We didn't always live on Mango Street.
They said something about we. When you think about we, think about you and someone else. So you are involved in it. So that's going to be first person since you are a part of that we.
That's Sophie closed her eyes and lay quite still. That's
Think about what this one is. If it talks about Sophie, that's not saying I or me. That's not saying you. Sophie can be replaced for the word she. So it's going to be third person.
third person. Your feet are now stuck in green slime.
First is me, second is you, third is he or she. So which one is this?
That's second person. In the hole in the ground, there lived a hobbit. That's third person.
Let's look at this one and see why it's third person. In a hole in the ground, there lived a hobbit. So the hobbit is who they're talking about. The hobbit is a man, so that's going to be third person. The hobbit could be replaced with he.
Person. It made me so sick I almost fell out of the tree.
That's I.
First person. You're thinking, this wasn't the way it was supposed to go. That's
Second is you.
second person. My name is Katniss Everdeen. I'm 17 years old. That's
Is I.
first person. Everybody wants to know my point of view. First person is me, second person is you. Third person is he, third person is she. Everybody wants to know my POV. Everybody wants to know my point of view. First person is me, second person is you. Third person is he, third person is she. Everybody wants to know my POV.
Yeah. You know, Miss Smith is a fool for those vocabularies. It always helps me remember what I need to know. So let me go ahead and I am going to read another chapter of Maniac for us today. So this is chapter 35. Remember, the last thing that just happened was Maniac found the two young McNabb brothers in the cabin out in the woods, and they were cold, so they were trying to run away to Mexico. So he was taking them back to town so that they could get back with their family. So we're going to read chapter 35. Now listen to the words that I'm saying and think about which point of view is this author writing in. So who's telling the story? Is it first person, I, second person, you, or third person, he or she, or someone's name? It took a while for everything to get straightened out. First, Giant John had to be convinced that Maniac was not kidnapping his brothers. Then the brothers had to do some more trembling and clinging while John finished lambasting them for running away, which apparently they did about every other week. Then, when the brothers found out that their pizza person was none other than the famous Maniac Magee, the very same one who had blasted their big brother's fastballs to smithereens and finished him off with a home run frog, well, it took a good 5 minutes of rolling on the sidewalk to get all the laughing out of their systems, which of course got Giant John more than a little steamed. Prompting Maniac, who didn't like seeing John disgraced, before his little brothers to say, "Yeah, but didn't John tell you what happened the next day?" And the brothers said, "No, what?" And Giant John said, "Huh?" And Maniac winked at John and crossed his fingers. "Sure, John, you remember. At the Little League field the next day, you said I was lucky that all you threw me was fastballs because you weren't ready to reveal your secret pitch, the one you'd been working on. Remember?" McNabb nodded dumbly. "And so I said, well, come on, I can hit anything. Pitch it to me." And you pitched it, and I missed it by a mile. And you kept pitching it to me all day long, and I never even hit a foul ball on it. "What was the pitch? What was the pitch?" chanted the urchins. "It was," Maniac paused for dramatic buildup, "the stop ball." "The stop ball?" "Yeah, and you should have seen it. It comes right up on the plate looking all fat and easy to bell, and then, just when you take your swing," Maniac got into his batter's stance and demonstrated, "it sort of stops, and your bat just whiffs the air." He whiffed at an imaginary stop ball. "Wow," said the brothers, gazing up at their big brother. And so Maniac was invited to accompany the brothers McNabb to their home. Despite the cold, the front door was wide open, and Maniac could smell the inside before he could see it. The first thing he did see was a yellow, short-haired mongrel looking innocently up at him while taking a leak in the middle of the living room floor. "Clean that up," John ordered Russell. "Clean that up," Russell ordered Piper. Piper just walked on by. After closing the front door, which was surprisingly heavy, Maniac found a stack of newspapers in a corner. He laid some over the puddle to soak in, then gave himself a tour of the downstairs. Maniac had seen some amazing things in his lifetime, but nothing as amazing as that house. From the smell of it, he knew this wasn't the first time an animal had relieved itself on the rugless floor. In fact, in another corner, he spotted a form of relief that could not be soaked up by newspapers. Cans and bottles lay all over, along with crusts, peelings, cores, scraps, rinds, wrappers, everything you would normally find in a garbage can, and everywhere there were raisins. As he walked through the dining room, something, an old tennis ball, hit him on top of the head and bounced away. He looked up into the laughing faces of Russell and Piper. The hole in the ceiling was as big they both could have jumped through it at once. He ran a hand along one wall. The peeling paint came off like cornflakes. Nothing could be worse than the living and dining rooms, yet the kitchen was. A jar of peanut butter had crashed to the floor. Someone had gotten a running start, jumped into it, and skied a brown one-footed track to the stove. On the table were what appeared to be the remains of an autopsy performed upon a large bird, possibly a crow. The refrigerator contained two food groups, mustard and beer. The raisins here were even more abundant. He stopped several of them moving. They weren't raisins, they were roaches. The front door opened, and seconds later, a man clomb into the kitchen. He wore no winter jacket, only a sleeveless green sweatshirt, which ballooned over his enormous stomach. Tattoos blued his upper arms. His hands were nearly pure black. Stale body odor mingled with that of fries and burgers coming from the Burger King bag he held. Dropping the bag next to the bird remains, He bellowed, "Chow," and took a beer from the fridge. He downed a good half of it in one swig, belched, double clenched, and belched again. He had to know someone besides himself was standing in the kitchen, and just as obviously, he didn't care. Two floor-quaking crashes came from the dining room. "Geronimo! Geronimo!" Russell and Piper had taken the direct route via the hole. "What'd you bring, Dad? Whoppers?" "Yeah, Whoppers." They tore into the bag like jackals into carry-on. Plastic flew, fries flew. They both wanted the same Whopper. Mashed between their tugging fists, the Whopper splurted sauce and cheese and pickle chips, then it split. Russell lurched forward into the kitchen table with his half. Piper lurched backward in the opposite direction, and with nothing to stop him, sailed right through the cellar doorway and down the cellar steps. The final thud was followed by a truck horn blast of Piper's laugh. When Giant John ambled in, the father said, "Get the blocks?" "No," grunted John, pulling out a pair of Whoppers. He tossed one to Maniac. "We need more," growled the father. John didn't answer. "We need more." "I heard." McNabb smashed the tabletop. 3 fries and a bird wing flew to the floor. "Now!" John walked out, nonchalantly munching. "I was busy." The rest of the night was scenes from a loony movie. Scene. McNabb, the father, swaggers bare-armed out the front door, bellowing back, "Do your homework." Scene. Maniac retrieves the wet newspaper from the living room. There are no wastebaskets in the house. He finds a trash can in the backyard next to a pile of cinder blocks. He dumps the soggy papers in the can, which is empty. Scene. Small turds of an unfamiliar shape appear here and there along the baseboards of the first floor. "Please don't be rats," Maniac prays. Scene. The Cobras come in. They glare at Maniac, but Giant John tells them to lay off. They raid the fridge for beer. They smoke cigarettes. They belch and fart. They curse. Russell and Piper, kitty cobras, pop their own beer cans, guzzle, swagger, belch, smoke, curse. Scene. Football game. From the front of the living room to the back of the dining room, except for space, it has everything a regular game has. Running, passing, blocking, tackling, kicking. There is little furniture to get in the way. Ordinarily, the windows wouldn't last 5 minutes, but the windows of this house were boarded up with plywood. Body block cobras fly into the walls. The house flinches. Scene. A faint rustling noise behind the stove. "Oh no, rats!" Maniac dares to look. It's a turtle, box turtle, munching on old Whopper lettuce. Whew! Scene. The boys' bedroom. Russell and Piper lie prone at the hole. They fire toy submachine guns. Ta 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 ta. At the cobras heading out the front door. Piper jumps up and blows Maniac away, killing him at least 15 times. "This is how we're going to do it. Bam, bam, bam." "The guns will be real," says Russell, still prone and firing, the stock of the toy gun tied against his cheek. "Yeah," squawks Piper, "real." He flops back to the floor, sprays the hole downstairs. "Soon they'll start coming in. Bam, bam, bam." "Who?" says Maniac. "The enemy," says Russell. "Who's that?" says Maniac. Russell stops firing long enough to send Maniac a "Where have you been?" look. "Who do you think?" he sneers. He points the red barrel of the submachine gun toward the bedroom door, toward the east end, the heavy front door. Scene. Darkness. Silence. Sometime early morning. Maniac lies between the two brothers on the bed. Do cockroaches jump bedposts? Unable to sleep, asking himself, "What am I doing here?" Remembering Hester and Lester on his lap, Grayson's hug, corn muffin in the toaster oven. Thinking, who's the orphan here anyway? Hearing, as he at last lowers himself into sleep's deep water, a door slam, a slurred voice. "Do your homework." Fearing, will I float? Okay, so that was Maniac, who just stayed at the McNabb brothers' house, and this chapter is really giving us some insight, giving us some clues about why the McNabb brothers act the way they do. So think about the way their house is, think about their father, think about how they treat each other. So we can see that they don't have the greatest home life, right? Maniac said their house stinks, there's trash everywhere, they don't have any food, they've got cockroaches, the dad seems like he drinks a lot, and we know that Maniac doesn't really know what that's like because he doesn't have a family. So this is all really new to him. But I want to talk about the point of view that was being used in this chapter and in this text. So remember, first person is me or I. I think about this, if I put up a 1, it kind of looks like an I. Second person is you, and whenever you do 2 fingers, it looks like the top of a Y. So you can remember second is you, first is me, second is you, third is he or she. It could also be him, his, her, or names like Maniac, John, Russell, Piper. So we know that this book isn't in first person because Maniac's not telling the story. If Maniac were telling the story, or one of the McNabb brothers were telling the story, then it will be first person because it would say I, me, my, us, we. So it's told by a character in the story. We also know it's not second person because it doesn't talk about you. So the narrator of the story isn't speaking to the reader. So when we read this book, it's not like Maniac is speaking to us saying, you wouldn't believe what this house looks like, right? This story is in third person. So the narrator, the person who's telling us the story, knows the thoughts and feelings of one or all characters. So we know for sure that the narrator knows the feelings of Maniac, right? So it talks about how Maniac is praying and how he's thinking in his head and how he's fearing, do the cockroaches jump bedposts? So we know that this chapter in this text is third person. It even talks about, for instance, it uses their names. Russell and Piper had taken the direct route via the hole. It talks about McNabb smashed the tabletop, 3 fries and a bird wing jumped to the floor. When Giant John ambled in, the father said, "Get the blocks." And then there's some about Maniac in here, and Maniac winked at John and crossed his fingers. So we know that this is third person. It talks all about the feelings of the characters in the book, and it talks about he, she. Well, there's no she's in this chapter, but it talks about they, Piper and Russell. It talks about Maniac, which is he. It uses names of the characters. So this was third person. So you will find this same template on Clever. And your job of today is to fill this out on a regular piece of paper, and you're going to put your name, you're going to put your book, your author, and this is for your author study book, the one that you just finished. So you'll put that title and the author of your book, and then you're going to put what point of view was your book in. Was it first? Did it say I? Did one of the characters tell the story? Was it second? Did the narrator speak directly to you as you read the book? Or was it third person? Did it talk about he, she, them, her? Or did it give names of people? Did it tell you the feelings and the thoughts of the character? And I want you to come up with at least 3 pronouns from the text and other clues. So that could be sentences that talk about their names, that have their names in them. For instance, just like we talked about how it has McNabb smashed the tabletop, that would be 1. Then you could say, if it talks about, there's a they in here, so they tore the bag like jackals, that would be your second, because that's another third person pronoun. Pronoun is he, she, they, I, you. And then it also talks about their names, which I think is very important. So you can see that it says their names. So Maniac was invited to accompany the brothers McNabb to their home. So that would be my 3 pronouns. I would talk about the sentence that uses Maniac's name. I would talk about a sentence that uses the pronoun they. And then I would also talk about a sentence that used he or another name of a character. So your job today is to fill out this paper on your author study book that you just finished and identify or determine what the point of view was from your text. Now, it's rare that there's more than one point of view, but if there is more than one point of view, then put that in there. You can split this second part up here on the bottom, and if it has 2 points of views, the point of view is, and you can tell which point of view it is in different parts of the book. So go ahead and fill that out on your own piece of paper today, and that is what you're doing for reading.